We are at Baltimore Comic Con with creator Dean Haspiel, and just wanted to know, how's the con treating you?
The con has been great. This is my favorite Comic Con of the year because it's an actual Comic Con.
Right.
You know, I mean, I get to do the indie shows like SPX and Mocha, and that serves a certain kind of quadrant of creator, you know, which is the indie creator, you know. And then there's New York Comic Con, which is more akin these days to like a San Diego Comic Con. I've also been a guest at Wizard World, and they treat me really well, which is more like a celebrity signature nerd Mardi Gras because of the cosplay and stuff. And I do like cosplay. What I like about Baltimore is it equalizes. It's mostly a comic book show, but it allows for the veterans and the rookies. You know, you have the cool retailers. We can get a comic book for $1 from back in the day, you know. There's just enough cosplay where it's not overwhelming, you know. And it's just, and also Mark Nathan and Brad Tree and the entire Baltimore Comic Con staff treats us like gold, you know, and we try to boomerang that and go back and forth in that way, you know, like I serve the show, they serve us, and it's a relationship, it's a family.
Okay.
You know, and the Harvey Awards is fun and that kind of stuff, and I don't know, this is the one I look forward to every year, it's Baltimore Comic Con, and I like the Inner Harbor.
Oh, it is beautiful.
You know, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So
it's absolutely beautiful.
Yep.
You were an assistant to Bill Sienkiewicz and Howard Chaykin.
In 1985,
Right.
it was my senior year of high school, and I was best friends, or still good friends, with Larry O'Neill, whose father's Denny O'Neill,
Okay.
legendary writer of comics and editor. And he had gotten wind that, who was it first, that Howard Chaykin needed an assistant. So Larry became an assistant to Howard on American Flag in 1985. Howard was sharing a room with Walter Simonson, a guy named James Sherman. Previously, other members of Upstart Studios, which is what the studio's called, had Jim Starlin, Frank Miller, a whole bunch of other, you know, cartoonists. Down the hall, Bill Sienkiewicz set up with Dennis Cowan and Michael Davis. Okay, so they got a room down the hall, and I think Bill was like, I want an assistant, you know, like I don't think he needed one, to be honest.
Right.
And so I went and got a gig with him, and I felt intimidated because like I can't draw like this guy. He's very specific and unique, you know. But I did do backgrounds for New Mutants and the first issue of Electro Assassin.
Okay.
And I would also be hanging out with Larry and Howard. And at one point, I became a second assistant to Howard Chaykin on American Flag.
Okay.
And then once in a while, I would work with Walt on Thor. And specifically the famous, remember when Thor became a frog?
Yeah.
So that was that time period, 1985. And then I was lucky enough to sell, co-create and sell a series called The Verdict with writer Martin Powell. And I think we came up with the first issue of The Verdict in 1987. So I slowly but surely, you know, branched off to doing my own stuff. But as a kid, I thought I was going to grow up to only pencil the Fantastic Four one day. That was my dream. And I have drawn canon Fantastic Four as of last year. So that, a part of my dream came true.
Okay.
But you know, the minute you're reading comic book from the newsstand across the street, to discovering a comic book shop, to discovering American Splendor and Yummy Fur by Chester Brown, and you're like, oh, I can do this on my own too. You don't need to, you know, read or try to, you know, work for Marvel and DC Comics, although as I love those characters, you know, to me, that's our modern American mythology. You know, those are our Greek heroes, our Norse gods, these characters. But slowly but surely you realize, oh, I can create my own, or I could write and draw a comic book about my life, you know? So that's why I've hopscotched around. You can't peg me, you know? I'm like, I'm dipping toes everywhere, so, you know?
So that was 30 years ago. So what is the biggest thing that you took away from that 30 years ago that you still can use today?
You know, it's so far away from then now that I can't, like, I guess maybe 15 years ago I could still rely on those old, you know, what I learned back then. But as you grow older and there's the internet and digital this, and now I think the future of comics might be like produce one panel a day on Tumblr. You know, like, and that to me is still, I don't necessarily get that, because it means that we're living in a world where, you know, the worst thing ever happened to the internet is that it was free. So I think a lot of people think that you just get these things for free, you know, and we got to produce these and we're going to try and make a living at it, you know. The other thing was the entry level was harder, meaning, you know, you had to be sanctioned by certain publishers, that's what it felt like before self-publishing. Now anyone and their mom can like draw comics, you know, and I think what they discover as they try to do it is like, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought, you know.
Right.
It should feel that way or look that way as the reader, like it should feel easy, but I think that what they discover, the newbies, is that there's a certain kind of commitment level. Forget the platform and how it's delivered. The commitment level of actually sitting down and doing these things, is actually as hard as it's always been. Because comics is a different kind of language. It's a multimedia language. It's visual arts. It's writing. It's music. It's theater. It's behavior. And you're trying to combine all that into one little performance piece where image is text too. And the other thing is, like, I'm always learning. I think I'll always be learning till the day I die how to do this, because you can be limited by your successes, or push the boundaries. And I was just saying on a panel an hour ago, like, collaboration is important because it makes you do things that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise do. We like to get comfortable and familiar with what we do, but then you don't learn and grow from there. So you got to continue to, like, move and like break things and embarrass yourself. As long as I'm embarrassing myself every year, I know I'm doing something right.
Right.
No,
I absolutely hear you. Actually, that leads into my next question. So you're known as a writer and an artist.
Yes.
And you do your own stuff,
yes.
but you also collaborate with other people like
Yes.
Mark Waid on the Fox. So what makes you still want to collaborate when you actually know that you can probably just go out there and do your own thing?
Because what I realize is, like, let's say somebody gave me $1 million. I have a character called Billy Dharma, and they gave me $1 million to do a monthly series of Billy Dharma for the next 4 or 5 years. I don't think I could do that. Because I don't know if I have a monthly series of Billy Dharma stories. That's a very unique thing that I dive into once in a while. To me, it's almost like a therapy or a certain kind of catharsis that I use those characters for. And because I grew up, like, wanting to draw Mr. The Thing or OMAC or other franchise characters, sure, I could try to come up and I could be a custodian like I was with the Fox, be a custodian of a character. But, like, I like to collaborate because maybe there's something that's scratching in my head that's like, well, you don't own these anyway, so why don't you work with people that can rock it with you? Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then when I do my own stuff, then it's solely mine, and it's warts and all, But if I can uplift my storytelling skills with, experts and, like, geniuses, why not, like, go for the ride that way, So that's why I do like to collaborate.
Okay.
And because of editorial hands and all that, let the writer deal with that stuff. You know what I'm saying? I can come up with a good story, but do I need to write the dialogue? Not necessarily. I'll save that for myself. Like, those are my little babies.
Okay. What still excites you about creating comics 30 years after the fact?
The fact that I still probably don't know how to do them. 30 years under my belt, but it's every page, every new blank page, I'm staring at it, I'm trying to figure it out. Like, how am I going to show this story? Because there's so many ways to do it. And that's why I've actually experimented in the past where, you come up with one person can write a script, but 8 of us can draw it differently. Yeah. And they're not wrong. That's interesting, I love storytelling. I think, what I would love to do more, I would like to get more into TV and movies, because I went to film school. And I love the visual arts, the storytelling medium through visual narrative.
You actually won an Emmy, too.
I won an Emmy for working on HBO's Bored to Death, where for the opening credit sequence, and I did all the artwork for the Ray character played by Zach Galifianakis, who was loosely based on me, because that ain't me. I like the show and it's cool, right. But that ain't me. Okay. But anyway, so I've always loved film. I love other genres, so I want to expand that, because being hunched over an art table 7 days a week is starting to break my back, And that's probably why I prefer doing this interview standing up with you right now, because it's actually helping my back right now. So anyway, but yeah, I think it's always exciting and new. I don't get tired ever of, like, the challenge of trying to figure out how to lay out a page. To me, that's comics. Once I figure out the layout and I'm happy with it, and sometimes that could take days, honestly, or it could take an hour, depending. Then everything's execution. Then it's like figuring out how to draw the character right or get the angle or the pose, because now you're trying to serve the story, well by crafting it well enough, But the hardest part is, like, how to translate your idea of, like, this script or, like, serve the story that someone else wrote, or how, in the collaboration or whatever, and visually realize that's all in the layout. That's the thumbnail little sketch that you go over and over and you erase. I do more erasing than penciling, to be honest, in my career, because I'm trying to figure that out and what makes me happy. And then show it to your friends. Don't be shy. Does it work? you got to bring story clarity to this stuff, you know. So.
All right. Well, that does it. And just wanted to thank you for the interview.
Thank you so much.
And all right, back to the studio.
Thanks.